What is up? We are back. WU-TANG Wednesday, episode 4. Protect your deck. I'm Dan. I'm here with, my God, Tuck. It's starting to become the Dan and Tuck show over here, man. You're my partner in crime.
Yeah, it's bad luck.
Dude, I love it, dude. I love it. If you don't know who Tuck is, get your life together. And if you're not using FaB Life, if we sit at a table and you ask me, yo, is it cool if I use my app? And I say yes, and you pull out an app that is not FaB Life, I'm gonna feel like you've insulted my family, my friends, my puppy, my team. Just download the app and use it. It is the superior app. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased or anything.
Yeah, thank you. I'm always happy to be your puppy any day.
Yo, Tuck, what's going on, man? How's everything going?
Pretty good. As you know, we've been really gearing up for LA now. We're starting to get into that mindset of really being competitive again. And that's been a lot of fun. I know LA is still kind of a ways away, but we're both really starting to get it in our vision. And we're like, okay, well, let's just start jamming games. Let's predict the meta, make our own tier list. And what about this hero? Are they sleeper? And so it's really fun and exciting to be in the season that we're in currently in Flesh and Blood.
I agree, and we have role reversal. I'm beanie list. Tuck's wearing the beanie.
Yeah.
That break after that, I love the winter break that LSS does, and everyone's like, "Yeah, man, like they take time off, and it's great, and time off is great." And in my head, I was like, "Is it no?" And I feel like,
right.
Dude, I'm like, RTNs will be next weekend. They start,
yeah,
and then we get ready. It feels like it's dude. It's. I'm so happy that we're back into it, which is an amazing preface to what the topic for today is. We're going to be talking a lot about competitive versus casual, flesh and blood, and all of the things that are in between. Those two terms come up a lot. I got something in my eye. Those two terms come up a lot where it's like, I'm a competitive player, or I'm a casual player, and I think it's important to kind of define those a little bit. We'll dive in. Can Flesh and Blood be a very good competitive and casual game? And I think the answer is yes to both of those. And we'll kind of go over the mindset of some of that, because especially when newer players come in, I see them throw those terms around a lot. And it's like, you know, a newer player might see us, we do the podcast and we travel and do all this stuff. And they'd be like, well, I'm not competitive like them. But it's like, but I also like to play for fun and casual too. So it's like, it's everything in between.
Right.
Before
Everyone's
we
got
dive
their own
in,
opinion of casual versus competitive. Everyone's got their own personal definition, it seems like.
Yeah, and I don't. Some of it seems. I know it's all subjective. Some of it feels. Yeah, it's all subjective. Some of it feels wrong though, and I know like someone's opinion can be wrong. But sometimes when someone is like,
some opinions can be more wrong than other opinions, you know.
And sometimes
I feel
like
me and Wes talk to each other. I mean, it's a great example of that.
I think that sometimes they use the terms too strictly, and then someone's like, well, I'm a casual player, so I don't want to play competitively, or I'm a competitive player, so I'm never playing UPF or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Before we dive in, though, I wanted to talk real quick, because we do a little intro every time, and now I got to start getting creative with yours because you're on this all the time. But you're working on the developer tournament. Can you talk about that? Are we allowed to talk about that? Can we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
So a lot of the Flesh and Blood developers, such as Philip, who makes February, Nathan, who makes Legendary Stories, Mark, who formerly made Draft Fab, rest in peace. A lot of us are just in a Discord, hanging out, helping each other with little developer problems and supporting each other. And we decided, we work a lot for various things. I'm making FaB Life, they're working on the spoilers. Let's take a break and just have some fun and play Flesh and Blood together. So we got 8 people who are willing, including myself, and we organized just like a randomly seeded tournament bracket and decided, you know what, let's not only play games together, but turn that into YouTube content. And then the person who was originally going to do all this sort of had to step back because of various personal reasons. And so I said, okay, well, I'll take over, screw it. So that'll be coming out on our YouTube channel, Blood Rush Fellows, in the coming weeks. Please look forward to it. It will not be perfect, but it's my first foray into any sort of like structured video content like this, and I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a nice, like, it will definitely be like a full match recorded gameplay with commentary, but I'm also making sure to add both deck list overviews and product overviews so that we developers are also getting a little bit of advertisement and awareness out of this. So if you do watch those videos, please check out all the products that are featured, and we thank you for checking it out. It's going to be awesome.
I'm excited because, to be honest, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud on this thing that's being recorded that I'm not going to edit out. There's some of those apps and I'm not familiar with. So I'm so interested to see some of like that side of it where it's like, oh, this person made this thing, and I'm like, oh, I just know about FaB Life, you know what I mean? And like
FaB.
Yeah.
Talishar, there's some big ones. But there's
Can you talk about how you did in the tournament, or that would be spoiling?
So currently we have played one round. So we played 4 of the 7 total games because it's just a regular 8-person bracket. I won't spoil any results because my match versus Nathan will be the first video coming out. But it is a very nice back and forth match, and we're going to have our good buddy, local Garrett Schusterich, commentating that game too, who is just an absolute master of FaB. He and I have played the FaB Bravo matchup a lot, so he has a lot of really good insight to have. It's going to be really good content. I think this is still a work in progress, so don't hold me to any of this, but I'm thinking that in the subsequent rounds, especially because I personally putting the content together, I've seen everyone's deck lists and games and stuff, that in the later rounds we will, I'll say, well, you can different deck list, different hero, whatever you want to do. It's a new game, new match, whatever you feel like doing. But we'll see. It'll be a good time.
Yeah,
Developer tournament. Check it out whenever it hits our channel.
It'll be fun. I'll make sure to, we'll make sure we scream at the top of our lungs to get that out there. It'll be a cool thing to watch. I think I'm commentating on 1 or 2 of them, which will be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Katsu games.
And speaking of Garrett will definitely be on this podcast. Garrett is a FaB menace. He's very good with the math behind Flesh and Blood, and I'm going to do an episode with him about the value of cards and how to value cards and things like that. Me and him could not be discussion. Say again?
That's going to be a great discussion because, as you're about to say, everyone evaluates things really differently. But then you come to sort of a similar answer, just with a different process of getting there, and it's going to be I can't wait to hear what y'all say.
Garrett is so funny to me because me and him could not be more of the opposite sides of the same exact coin. Like, I play Ninja, but I play Katsu. He plays FaB. He's very much like a logic. He's playing with his brain. I'm more playing off of feel and tempo and things like that. But we're both very successful. So that's a podcast that I'm very much looking forward to. Me and him are you're right. We get to the same answer, but we could not go completely the different route. Yeah.
Just like both of y'all take a mid-range approach to Ninja, but in a very different way. And it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, it's always cool to break bread with him because he'll say something and I'm like, that's not how I don't play like that. And he'll look at how I don't play like that. And I'm like, but here we are at the finals. You know what I mean? So it's always cool. It's always cool, Garrett.
Yeah.
All right. So today we're going to talk about casual versus competitive Flesh and Blood. Now, Flesh and Blood itself is I feel like it's a pretty competitive game by nature, the way that the game and LSS, they have all the competitions that come up, and just the way that the game is played feels like a very competitive game. Now, what Tuck said before is completely spot on. This is obviously subjective. It's up for, it's our opinions. But if we were to try to define what we would say competitive versus casual Flesh and Blood, where does that line get drawn? Is an armory competitive? If I'm sitting with you and playing and I want to win, does that make it competitive? Is casual just like the UPF stuff, or maybe different formats? In your opinion, what do you think? Where do we draw that line between casual and competitive? And let's start there, because I think as we start to talk about the new player onboarding and the new player journey and which formats are bad and good for competitive, we kind of have to have those things defined, even if it's loosely.
Right. Start to unravel the mystery here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the difference lies somewhere around the armory level. I think if you in your free time are already going to armories, you can be just having a good time and, going 2 and 2 every week or worse and still just hanging out. Or you could be going to armories and then going to home and going, oh crap, this matchup went really well, this went poorly, start iterating. And it's I think that really there's a divide, is what are you doing in your free time when you're not actively already playing the game? Is it still living rent-free in your head? Are you still trying to iterate and be better? Or are you just going, that was fun, anyway, back to whatever? That's kind of how I view it. And that's how I define myself as a competitive player, because I spend way too much of my free time just obsessing over the game and its design and its heroes and its balance.
Like most of us.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to start, at least.
I would then say I agree, and I would then think depending on the prize structure of the armory, might it influence how that feels. So a good example is maybe you have an armory that gives out a lot more prize packs or whatever the prize is, gives a lot more prize for top 4 or whatever. And then you have some armories that are just everyone's getting the same amount of packs. I would say, and maybe we're getting on something here. I like to do these podcasts very freeform. Obviously, I think about it, but I don't have a definition set in my head, or else it would feel very like a robot, and I'm just reading something. So we're on this discovery together. I think that you're absolutely right, and I think if there's a tipping point at the armory, it will be based on the prizes and probably the group of people that are there.
Exactly. It's also the people and the community. I mean, we've been blessed here in Colorado. We talk about it a lot, but the community is always a driving factor in this game. Not just for, like the people skills, the growing scene, how many people show up to an armory, but it's iron sharpening iron. We used to say that phrase a lot here. It's if more people are in my scene, I'm getting better. I'm getting more insight. I'm getting more reps. I'm getting more variety. It all goes hand in hand. And I think people are a big driving force for other people wanting to play competitively, even if it just starts with like a local rivalry of like, oh, I just met this guy named Dan, and he kicked my ass, and I want to beat him next week. It's got to start somewhere.
Andrew always comes to mind when I think about this, because Andrew in our scene, first off, shout out to Andrew. That guy's awesome. Second off, he would probably say he's a casual player, but then shows up to the armory the other night and comes in second place overall, and we're all trying to win.
With no command and conquers in the deck.
Yeah, so there's this
everyone else who's like all stacked out, and he's just like, oh, I'm just playing Rhinar because I think he's
exactly
cool.
Yeah, and he comes in second place.
Almost takes down the armory casually. It's so cool. It's awesome.
The whole room won, and he was against Garrett. Garrett wins a lot. There's not like people don't like Garrett. People love Garrett. But
we love Garrett, but we were not cheering for Garrett.
The whole room wanted Andrew to win. The whole room wanted Andrew to win. And there's overlap there, right? Because it's not like if Andrew characterized himself as a casual player, it doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't want to win, right? Like, you can still want to win and be playing casually.
He's just not going to put in the extra time and effort to, like, pay hundreds to travel to LA and compete in a call. Like, he just wants to go to armories and have a good night and try to win, but just have a good night and have fun and hang out with people.
Do you think that Flesh and Blood has the legs to be a very good casual game? Do you think that all, like...
That is a loaded question. I think Flesh and Blood is designed with competitive gameplay at its core. I don't think that means it is only a competitive game, but I think that it is primarily a competitive game, if that makes sense. I know with UPF, and we'll get into this in a bit, but like there are structural problems and like game rules that sort of fight against competitive gameplay, but I think in general, the nature of attack, block, strip hand, everything being tempo based, this like fighting game style is a bit harder to make casual that's still a PvP game. And I think that's part of why everyone's really excited for whatever PvE ends up being, as well as like this new sudden resurgence of UPF and it actually being fun. I think Flesh and Blood can be a good casual game in the 1v1 PvP context, but it seems like that always sort of lends itself into slowly nudging you to do the same thing but competitively. Case in point, whenever Wes and I first got into the game over 2 years ago, Tales of Aria had just come out and we bought some pre-cons and played Kitchen Table, and then fast forward to us spending 2 months staying up till 3 a.m. Just playing Old Him Lexi, and shout out to him for putting up with that for a few months. But eventually, that casual of us just going, oh, I like the mechanics of this game. This hero is kind of cool. Now let's go to an armory. Okay, well then at the and it starts to snowball. And eventually we're like, I like this game more. I want to put more time into it. Ooh, but what if I did this? Oh, but how do I beat that guy? And suddenly you blink and you're like, oh, I have this giant collection. I'm traveling in a month on a plane.
You kind of start, you outline like the new player journey, and we're gonna. I want to talk about this because we were at the gym yesterday.
We're skipping ahead.
No, you're good. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of overlap anyway. There's no way to separate all these things because there is overlap. And Tuck and I were at the gym yesterday, and we're kind of talking about very vaguely about what the what the podcast we want it to be about and what we're gonna talk about. And you came up with this kind of idea of this like new player like on ramp or onboarding, or the trajectory that most new players go through. And there's a lot of like, it feels like a new player will start off as casual as Flesh and Blood can get, and then the game kind of nudges you more towards that like competitive, more towards that direction, right? Like you start off with, like you said, you guys bought pre-cons or you play Blitz or whatever, and we're gonna dive into all that. Damn it, I forgot what I was going to say now.
The new player onboarding experience with us just like gradually building up into it.
Oh, so you said, okay, no. Whew, thank you. You brought me back, dude. Oh, my God. Oh, I almost like mega unprofessional. Almost forgot my own thought, man. I'm sitting here taking notes.
No, we are the most professional on the Blood Rush Fellows. This stuff is edited.
Yeah. my fear with UPF and the PvE, not UPF, but the PvE that's coming out or that people want is, and this is, I always say, I hate to play devil's advocate. The devil has enough advocates, man. Like, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer over here or anything like that, but I did come from Runeterra. And Runeterra right now, as we speak, they are, if you're not familiar with Runeterra, you're familiar with League of Legends. League of Legends, the Riot game that's everywhere. Legends of Runeterra was their card game. There's a lot of people that play Flesh and Blood and Runeterra, which is actually how I found out about Flesh and Blood. Alan ZQ was a world champ in Runeterra and was on the Polish team that they all brought Katsu. It was like last year when I started playing.
Oh,
the whole
Polish
team.
Katsu, yeah.
Exactly, right? So he was on that team. And
Majin Bay, of course.
Who we both know.
Nice.
Shout out to Majin. He just took second overall at the battle.
Yeah, on freaking Kano.
Yeah.
Majin's such a good wizard player.
I told you yesterday, I said the worst thing for competitive Flesh and Blood players, unless you're Majin Bay or on Majin's team, is Runeterra not being a PvP game anymore, because that guy's a killer and he was barely putting any work into Flesh and Blood. A lot of his time went into Runeterra, but he's another one. And Runeterra did the same thing. I think sometimes when a company tries to do both things or a game tries to do both things, it's very difficult.
I agree. That's what I think about competitive gameplay versus casual gameplay in general. I think it's hard to design a game that really fosters both at the same time without both of them suffering. I think one thing that Flesh and Blood does really well in this is that if you've ever noticed whenever you're drafting and playing sealed, the common and rare cards are very simple. They have a little bit of text. They have the bold keyword, and that's it. They are very straightforward, and they tell you what they do. And then the Majestics are the cards that are kind of more complicated and involved, and you think, well, duh, they're the money cards. But that's actually really by design, so that if you're playing Pauper, if you're playing sealed, if you hand a new player some packs, they don't just go, oh my god, what do I do? They're not thrown in the deep end. I think that is a good aspect of it. Obviously, designing a sealed or a set for draft competitive and constructed competitive, and trying to make it both casual friendly and it's like you're saying, you can definitely get too stretched thin, which is why I think Flesh and Blood has to sort of bend backwards a little bit to be casual oriented. And personally, I prefer that because I'm a competitive player. I like a competitive game. I like a game that I can obsess over and theory craft myself to death. But I think that's why UPF exists and some fan formats, and we had a blast with Two-Headed Giant. I think you really have to sort of twist the game and modify it to make it more like it doesn't matter if you win or lose, just have a good time and think of some crazy combos that everyone laughs at.
And that's like, you said something at the end there where you said it doesn't matter if you win or lose. And I think that's also like a big factor with whether you are playing casual versus playing competitive, because every armory has people that are going to bring like a bad deck that they just enjoy. But the problem is you have to do that in a room where other people are probably doing that, or else that's what takes the fun out of it. And I know before you said something about jumping around, I'm about to jump around. That's the reason why I don't think LL should be a competitive format, because the format of LL is all about bringing in the cards that you wish you can still play, or bringing like some mega janky deck where if you're giving
legacy format.
If you're giving out a PTI and it's LL, everyone's going to bring Starvo, and now you take a format that might be meant for fun, but unless your definition of fun is bringing a deck that's going to lose to Starvo, and again, I'm talking like generals here, like obviously there's other decks you could bring to LL, but the last at Worlds, they had the LL event and the whole top 8 or whatever was all Starvo.
Exactly. It's like if you want to foster these formats that are meant to be more fun, and like I feel like LL is a celebration of what they have made in the past. It should just be fun, casual. Let's sit down, play some LL. Same as like, let's just... It's meant to be fun and casual, in my opinion. And I agree with you that as soon as they put a prize structure behind it, suddenly everyone metagames the process. Whereas I feel like, genuinely, if they just said, hey, here's a tournament, pay to enter, here's your free promo, and we're going to do like some random drawings. Just if every round you participate at all, you're entered another drawing. Anything like that, just play the game, maybe get reward. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, like we just said. But it's really hard to do that in a game that's a 1v1, someone wins and someone loses, to then incentivize it not mattering when someone wins and loses.
Exactly.
And that keeps going back to, I think they have to bend over backwards to make the game more casual focused. Not to say that it can't be. You just really have to be more cautious with planning any sort of event in Flesh and Blood if you're trying to cater to casual people, because the game is more naturally oriented to a competitive gameplay experience.
The wider the scope you make of what you're trying to balance, it makes it very, very difficult. And remember, I'm going to go and compare it to Runeterra again, but it's very unfair for me to make that comparison, because if Runeterra prints out a card, if Hearthstone prints out a card that is overpowered, they can patch that, change the mana cost of it, change how much damage it does. They can make these changes, and they can continue to make those changes without that much testing, which is like the benefit of all these online games. If there's any if there's any card that gets
was online, how many times do you think Command and Conquer would have been edited and changed and balanced and patched?
I think the D-Reacts, not being able... I mean, we talked about this yesterday. You can take the D-React off that card, where you can D-React to it. You can make it block for 2. You can make it cost 4. It's one of the best
cards in the game.
You can make it come in for 5 instead of 6. But you can't do all of that when the card is printed. The only option they have is to outright ban the card. So all the testing and stuff that goes into a physical-only card game, my hat, well, I don't have my beanie on. Your hat is off for the LSS team. You know what I mean? Like, I give it up to them, because the amount of testing and stuff that they have to do before a card comes out is, like, insane. So when all these people say, like, oh, man, we want PvE, because there were quite a few people that were, like, upset that we still don't have PvE, and it's like, you got to be careful with that, because Runeterra did the same thing. So when Runeterra first started, it was just the card game. There was no difference between, like, standard and LL, let's say, like, or a Hearthstone Wild. They made it called Eternal in Runeterra, which is what it ended up being. But when Runeterra first came out, you could play any card that was released as long as your deck was legal. There was nothing that was phased out, nothing. So when they added new stuff, it was like, oh man, it was real cool, because if you played Jinx in League of Legends, you can make a Jinx deck and play Jinx there. If you
make a Trundle deck.
Exactly. If you like Trundle, you can make Trundle, whatever. Then they made the Path of Champions, which was the PvE mode, and then at the same time, they put all these seasons in, where now there was a different format. Eternal was every card, and Standard was what they allowed in that season. So a lot of cards came in and out. You were no longer able to play what you wanted, and it made the meta a lot more narrow. But the repercussions were, Eternal was like no holds barred rules, like a hardcore match in WWF. Some people hitting people with ladders and chairs and barbed wire. It was like the wild, wild west in there. Standard, the meta was like, you either play these couple decks or you're losing. And then Path of Champions was fun, but it was for it was more for like people that wanted like a roguelike deck builder. It was like a completely different game.
And then they just got spread too thin, and their resources got too limited.
Exactly, right? So then now the game, they're saying they're pulling the PvP servers down. They're only doing the Path of Champions, and the game kind of is dying.
I can't imagine Flesh and Blood going that route, though. I do think we should get back to casual competitive stuff, but one more little tidbit about the PvE. I've been told by one of our locals that James White used to work on the World of Warcraft TCG, supposedly. And they would release PvE content in the form of raids, like in the World of Warcraft. So you could buy a box, we'd sit around a kitchen table, play a thing, open the packs, because you could just rip them immediately, but we then get the upgrade, the loot that we earned, and that's it. It seems like a fun thing to do. It seems like they really want this to be a kitchen table, like accessible, grab your girlfriend, have a fun night, whatever. I cannot see Flesh and Blood focusing primarily on that kind of content. I think this is just like additional expansion of their IP, more or less.
I mean, it would be cool to play that. And again, I'm with you. I am the sweatiest of sweat lords that go to these events. I want to win everything. I'm not really... I would never call myself a casual player with most things I do. If I'm going to do something, I want to win. I'm just like,
all or nothing.
You know what I mean? That's the mentality I have. But I love Flesh and Blood so much that I would play that. So I agree. If they make it so that there's like there's not too much investment from their team, and it's something that we can crack open, play, and it's cool, and then go back to jamming CC games, I'm all for that. But it's just something I want. You're right. We should go back to the casual versus competitive. But when people ask for too much, sometimes those things happen. And I think sometimes we forget as card players that Flesh and Blood, they do print the cards. So when they print something, there's got to be so much testing. I can't imagine the testing procedure that they go through with these cards.
And some cards get a lot of testing and some do not. If you are familiar with the Duskblade weapon, one of the most broken cards they've ever printed in Flesh and Blood, even if Warmongers is around now, still. And they admitted that it was a very late inclusion of Tales of Aria. They didn't do much testing on it. They just said, it should be good, just throw it in there, and then printed the set. And so it got banned before it hit shelves. They have not said much about their internal testing process, but we do know that some cards get more love than others on that factory line of just like, let's really scrutinize and see if this card's OP or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to like really.
Yeah. You can't blame them for having the occasional slip up like that.
Yeah.
Starvo is different, but like Duskblade is like, okay, they screwed up, ban it, that's fine. Even Rosetta Thorn honestly could have been majestic and it would have been just fine. No one would have batted an eye.
Now, with that being said, right, because the formats that I primarily play are CC and Draft, because those are the competitive formats now. They did LL and things like that, but with that being said, that doesn't mean that I think Precon, Blitz, Sealed, UPF, all these other formats, it's not that I think those are bad, and we kind of touched on it a little bit. I think those formats are the greatest at getting people to play the game. It makes the rules a lot easier. It makes the games a lot shorter. It makes the game more accessible to everyone because you can go to your local TCG and usually they'll just give you a precon or they'll sell you one for very, very cheap. And you said it was kind of your journey with Wes when you guys first started playing the game that you guys picked up a couple precons, started playing. You could trade the precons back and forth. You know what I mean? Like, and they even had like the battle sets, right? There was like 2 decks meant to go.
Rhinar versus Dorinthia. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great. Yeah. So I think the general new player journey tends to be, you know, hey, what is that game? Or someone tells you, you pick up some precons. That leads to eventually going to an armory where you like maybe play Blitz or a casual format. And then you just get more and more invested from there as the community sort of scoops you up and says, here, you know, take the game as seriously as you want to, and we got you, and we'll give you reps and all that. My opinion's been changing recently about some of these formats like Sealed, though. I, for the longest time, really thought Sealed, oh, you're at the mercy of what cards you open a mediocre pool, whatever. It just have fun. You'll go 2-2, but have a good time. And I've really come around to know Sealed is another one of those formats where the best players will always top. The cream will always rise to the top. It's all about that plethora of little tiny decisions. That's 1 extra point of value here. They took 1 extra point there. And this has really just been like a recurring thing for me, whether it was Battle Hardened Dallas, where I played 7 Teklo mirrors, where I only had 3 Evo slots covered, or the Coaxing that we had here in Colorado, where our team and team Min-Max Ascent were the 2 finals, and both of us were just talking about how our decks were terrible and our card pool is awful. It's crazy how some of these formats that are designed for new players can be just as competitive as the competitive mode of Classic Constructed.
I agree.
I think if you told this to new players, they would not believe you for a while until they experienced it firsthand.
Well, I thought the same thing. The first time I played Sealed was Bright Lights. Well, that kind of Sealed in Flesh and Blood is Bright Lights. And I was like, oh, all right, so whoever opens up the better cards wins. But then your boy took down the pre-release on Betsy. And I was like, okay, hold on.
Katsu Kid Dan.
I was like, wait a second. It makes sense that this time around I kind of knew what I was doing, put way more prep work into this. And you're right, because you have... If I'm playing with a piece of garbage deck, you probably are too. So it's who can get more value from those shitty cards that they had no...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Case in point, when we were doing our Heavy Hitters Release Day draft, we had a draft where, what do we have, 4 Brutes in a pot of 8?
Dude, I thought my Betsy deck was cracked when we did that draft too, and I went like for a million.
Yeah. I played against Wes, Brute on Brute. We both told each other before the game, oh, my deck is ass. Just wait. So, oh, cool, me too. I had 2 cracked baubles and he didn't, so we're like, oh, that's going to be the difference maker. I still took it somehow.
Shots fired,
and I'm not saying that's because I'm better and he's worse. It's just like the RNG of the cards that you draw give enough player agency that you almost always have some path to victory if you can find it.
Yeah,
and that's really, really cool.
there were like a lot of moments like that. I remember me and Michael both were like, dude, my deck is so bad. And then as we're playing them, we're like, wait a second, your deck's not that bad. And then to our
Every time with
left,
limited, that's limited flesh and blood.
yeah.
My deck is terrible. Oh wait, maybe it's okay.
But what was funny is like to our left, Simon and Peter were both talking about how their decks were like absolutely insane. And I was like, thank God, first off, Michael, thank God it's me and you here and not one of us against them, because we're both talking about how bad our decks are. And these guys are like, I couldn't have made a better standard CC deck if I tried.
Basically playing CC.
Well, because Simon had the Betsy helmet that he pulled and like every wager card.
Yeah.
But he ended up losing in the first round. I know they ran it back. I think they went 1-1. But you're right. It was like real cool to be like, oh, my deck is real bad. Oh, but my deck's real bad. And then who can get more value out of it and who gets luckier and things like that. But you're right. I think there's definitely overlap. And it's funny because we're talking about like this new player onboarding and Sean.
Right.
We have a new player, Sean, in our scene with the long hair. I'm turning him to a Katsu main over here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
He did all of this exactly. He went to the pre-release, which was sealed, and him and his family and his girl, they played Blitz pre-cons before that. That got them to go to the pre-release event, which got him then to go through all the bulk at Petrie's to make a deck to show up for his first CC armor, and he went through that exactly what we're saying. So,
right.
I think some of the
I do think sealed is a better format to teach new players than I thought because of all these points. I think if you are able to just hand someone a deck and say all the cards are common and rare, or most of them are, so you know exactly what they do, and then you can just sit with them and say, oh, well, you wanted to do this, but like, instead of blocking with your armor here where there's no one hit, what if you save it? And just talk through some basic game mechanics while just playing a game of sealed with them. It's both easier for them to digest how to play this new game they've never heard of, and also there's a lot of room for like, well, what if you did this? What if you held on to that? How do you think it would play out in this? Like, there's a lot that you can learn and teach and enjoy in just that casual environment, which, we're going to get to the hot take of the episode, is why I think Blitz sucks. Blitz is a failure of Flesh and Blood.
Well, we got to talk about why it's good first. We have to talk about why it's good
Okay,
first.
all right, we'll get there.
So we're here talking about why
I'm fired up, I'm ready to go.
Blitz doesn't suck yet. Mm-hmm. But when you have a newer player and you show them a Blitz deck, and this is good for if you're a newer player, to hear like we kind of all went through the same exact.
Oh, absolutely. We played nothing but Blitz for like 8 months at Dice Guys.
But then we kind of like, we as like the community, not me and you or we on the team, we as Flesh and Blood players, most of us will end up like graduating from Blitz where we're like, all right, I want to play with more cards. I want more freedom. And to be honest, I think exactly what you said, like, I don't like Blitz. I don't like it competitively. Now that I've played CC and you do that, it's like, I don't really care to go back to it, but I do respect the pre-cons and the Blitz decks because of how easy it is to get newer players to go play. Right. But it kind of feels like Flesh and Blood, like you're in pre-K or elementary school. And you're about to graduate.
It's the tutorial. It's the tutorial.
Yes.
And it's like you said, you graduate from it. It's just meant to be a stepping stone. They used to have blitz callings in Europe and some of the countries that the game was smaller, they expected less than 100 people to show up. And then as the game started to grow, all of those are now classic constructed. I honestly am not aware of the last time they've had a blitz competitive event at a higher level than a battle hardened. And that's, I think, because they're aware that blitz is not a good competitive format.
It's not.
For any players who are like, oh, why? I haven't been around that long. It's primarily the fact that it's all the power level of Classic Constructed and the Majestics and the Legendaries and all that, but at half the life, really warps the turn-to-turn cycle of the gameplay. The game goes too fast. Suddenly you cannot use life as a resource when a lot of these matches, life and deck totals are two paired resources. All these fundamental cores of the game design start to break down simply because the life totals are cut in half. This is why, and again, we're continuing the hot take, I think LSS should thank Mansant for the Clash format and adopt it and replace Blitz with Clash. I think it would be so cool if I found a new player at the store and he said, oh, I think Riptide looks sick. And he buys a Riptide deck. And he opens all commons and rares, except he has the Majestic Riptide specialization. That's what's it worth? Like $2?
Maybe.
So it increases the price of the pre-con barely. But he's going, oh crap, this is my bomb, this is my power card. And he immediately gets feedback for how he wants to play the deck. It feels like a standout. Oh, I'm playing Riptide. I'm not just playing a Ranger deck with the traps. I think again, it goes back into this like sealed is a really good place to start, and then you go into more of like a clash area where you're playing 1-on-1 but with simple like a lower power scale, and then when you're ready to play at full power, that's what CC is just waiting, saying, "Come on, baby,
Yeah.
come on, come to me."
Come to the dark
So
side.
there's no like good spot for Blitz as a competitive game, and it's too high power level for a casual mode when you could just play UPF, you could play Clash, you can play Sealed, you can play 3-pack Shuffle. There's so many better options than Blitz for competitive and for casual.
There was
That I really think LSS just needs to abandon it.
There was an event at Ironline recently that was Blitz. I was there. You weren't even there. I was there.
No, I didn't go.
I forgot what the prize was though. Why did I go?
Probably just a regular armory.
No. It was on the weekend.
No?
You had to bring a deck list. Yeah, it was like for I think it was like
I don't know.
a card or something.
Oh, was it like a skirmish season?
Yeah.
Skirmish seasons tend to be Blitz.
Dude,
Yeah.
okay. So
Those do need to exist though. I'll give them credit where it's due.
I'm not. No way, bro.
No. Hear me out. So if you are in this process, you're like, I just heard of the game. I got a pre-con. I played kitchen table for a few weeks. I'm starting to feel pretty confident. Okay, I'm like going into Blitz, or like I'm slowly onboarding here, and I'm really getting interested. I want to go to a competition.
Nah.
Your
No.
options are Skirmish, Road to Nats, or ProQuest. Skirmish is the only one that fits into that like onboarding process. I'm not saying it has to be Blitz, but I think having a like ProQuest and RTN, some of them are draft. That's fair, but I think having one that's either sealed or a format that is new player conducive
Make
but
it
still
sealed.
competitive. Like I was saying, sealed is just as competitive as we want it to be, even though it may not look like it on the
Yeah.
surface.
This
But I
was
think
my,
skirmishes need to be like this part of this onboarding process too.
Yeah, but I don't think it could be Blitz because hear me out. That was recently. That whole thing. So your boy, I know how to play cards. I show up like, yeah, I'm not doing anything on that Saturday or Sunday, whatever. Yeah, skirmish season. Woo, yeah, Blitz, let's do it. I put together my OG KO deck because I'm looking at the Blitz heroes and half of them I don't even know what they do or who they are. So I'm like, if I can roll some 5s and 6s, I don't care what you do. I'm just gonna win. That's fine, cool. I put together my jank ass KO list. Round 1, I go up against someone's jank Riptide list, and I'm like, oh my god, Blitz is awesome. I threw 3 attacks. I rolled 5 or 6 on all 3, closed the game out. It took 45 seconds.
Oh my! Of course, you had a good time then.
I'm sure I had a better time than he did. But I'm like, oh my god, all right, my jank versus your jank. They can become friends. They can, you know what I'm saying? Our janks could be janks together.
Yeah, fun gameplay. Just
Yeah,
good time.
it was fun. And then I sit across from Josiah. And Josiah really wanted to win this thing, apparently. Because
Mr. High Roll or B High Rolled.
Dude, this dude showed up on Briar, LL'd and CC, can't even play it, playing cards that were banned, and LL'd and CC, and I have 20 health! Bro, it was the least amount of fun I've ever had, like, playing Flesh and Blood, because I was like, oh, okay, so, like, and, yo, my bad, Josiah. I love Josiah. He really wanted to win the card. I'm not shitting on Josiah here. But this is what happens when you put a prize in a format that shouldn't be competitive. If I wanted to do like I'm not saying he meta chased. Josiah is an OG Briar player. He wanted to play Briar. He was playing Briar. Yeah. But he's throwing 20 damage. Go again. Eat all this crazy shit. And I'm like, oh my god, I remember these cards. And I remember why they're banned or LL'd and why all these things happen. And now I got 20 health. And you're playing a better deck. Like, some of this stuff is banned in CC, not LL. Banned. Right. Too good for CC, but it's good enough for Blitz.
And it's like we were saying before, it's not Josiah's fault for doing this. Josiah is not the asshole in this situation.
No.
It's a product of there being competitive Blitz.
So if we go back to that
format that's not good at competitive.
So if we go to the analogy that you were saying, where you're like on your way up, that's why I think it's shit.
Just smacked back down to the ground.
Because you're going to get... If you're a new player and you sat across from that deck, you would have gotten... Dude, you would have gotten... It wouldn't have even been close.
Right.
Like,
and
the game would not... I didn't...
It's because he's been playing for longer, has more cards, and has more knowledge. Whereas if it's competition on something like Sealed, he still has that advantage, but it's a lot more of like, who's the better flesh and blood player? Who can make these fundamental decisions? And it's more grounded. It's more of an even, fair playing field that's more inviting to the casual or competitive adjacent players that want to start gearing up more for it. If we just keep going back to, I don't think Blitz should be a competitive format.
I don't think LO should be either.
Blitz shouldn't be a format at all. I think Clash should replace Blitz. I'll stop
agree.
ranting about that. But
I agree though, because
LL, oh my god.
the thing is that
LL
because
is
then
a
like
train
you
wreck.
have people that want to play Blitz and they want to play it for fun, then play it for fun. And if you want to play it for fun, most of the time you're not going to be playing the most busted, broken shit that the game exists, unless that's your
Right.
idea of fun. And in Josiah's case, like I'm saying, like you said, he's not the asshole. Josiah really wants to play those cards and he misses Briar
Right.
and all those things.
It's because there was a prize structure, as you were saying.
Yes, I'm saying Josiah might have brought it even if it was for fun because that
Right.
that deck is fun for him. But when you put a prize structure there, like if you go and do LL, if you and your homies want to sit, maybe smoke some of Colorado's finest, crack a beer open, sit, order some nachos, and you're sitting, you're like, yo, let's play LL, let's all bring some janky shit. That would make for a very good time. Until someone's like, yo, let's put $50 on for whoever wins, and everyone goes to their binders and makes Starvo real quick. That's what happened at Worlds at the LL thing. It's like, because the thing is Josiah beat the want to ever play Blitz again out of my soul. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to play
Imagine
the
that he
format
had
anymore.
Duskblade.
I don't even want to play.
Oh
And
my
it was
God.
like, oh, I'm like, this is exactly what I was afraid of.
Yeah.
And if you put a PTI or anything, let's talk about LL a little bit too, because I agree, and I think we drove the point home. Like, people should not be playing Blitz if you're trying to actually win. And that means that local game stores and LSS should stop putting prizes on Blitz, the format
Right.
of Blitz,
Embrace-
because this is what happens.
Embrace the lack of competitive gameplay to it and make it more like, oh, Blitz side events. Strike down, like, take your CC deck, make it thinner, go play side event, just have fun and chill.
All right. So
Still a
Blitz
good,
is,
fun game, but not competitive. LL, I think, is the same way, but for different reasons. Obviously, it's still adult format, so it doesn't suffer from the same thing that I was saying earlier about lower life warping the game. It's instead, in my opinion, it feels like a celebration of what Flesh and Blood has achieved in the past. It's, oh man, like Wes loves OG Prism. Luminaris is so busted. You can do all these crazy plays, but I'm old him. I can just oak an old, fuse pulse. It's, yes, Starvo is an asshole and was a huge mistake. Yes, you can let your friend play pre-erotic Briar and still beat them with a single Starvo fuse. Skeleton Viz is a menace. Lexi is still just regular Lexi and good enough, which is hilarious. But it feels like we're all just trying to beat the crap out of each other with like smiles on our faces. Like we're with, what are they called? Sock 'em boppers?
Dude,
It's a
the
sock 'em
soccer
bopper arena.
bombers, dude.
That's what LL is. It's like, let's beat the crap out of each other, let's get blown the hell out, and then run it back because it was fun and we both cheered a laugh. And so putting that in a prize structure feels weird, then compels them to make this ban list, which, oh my god, more than anyone else, you know I am so pissed off about this fucking ban list.
Well, because they just gutted your homie, dude. For
They
no
gutted
reason.
Oldhim, they gutted Icelander to an extent, and they gutted Lexi to a small extent. All because one character is beyond freaking busted. And I understand they've made the argument in the past that in Classic Constructed, making a ban list where these cards are banned for this deck and this card is banned for that deck, it gets confusing, it's less approachable for the players who are like teetering on that competitive level. I get that argument. But Living Legend is, I don't think it's a competitive format. But even if it is the format that's competitive because it's like the celebration of all the things in the past. It's the I have more knowledge, I'm going to try crazier things format, where I don't think that argument holds up as well. You can definitely have hero-targeted bans, and no one, including myself, is advocating for Starvo being the whole meta. No one enjoys that. But by keeping Starvo down in this weird, nuanced way of just hitting cards exclusively, they're keeping other heroes down and narrowing the meta for no reason. Especially when those other heroes like Oldham already have good counters like Prism, and good matchups like Viscerai where it can go either way. It just feels very short-sighted and a strange decision to not make hero-specific bans. And also, while we're at it, for them to limit Warmongers in LL, but not CC. What is up with that?
I mean, it's another hero or heroes getting fucked by proxy, right? Because we're talking about how like Warmongers in CC right now is very good against certain meta decks. What about the decks that it buries that aren't even meta, like Runeblade?
Yeah, who's playing Viscerai? What is Warmonger holding down right now besides Azalea? And even then, is it really needed to keep us? Is Azalea so good that she needs a generic to be kept in check
If
by
you're
everyone
Katsu,
in the game?
yeah, the answer is yes. But
Yeah.
yes, I agree with what you're saying.
But heroes are allowed to have favored matchups, though. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. It just
yeah,
feels
yeah.
weird. And then they were like, LL, too powerful. It reminds me of when they banned Winter's Wail a year and a half after Starvo hit Living Legend and said it was too powerful. Like, what the fuck? I'm sorry? Excuse me?
Do you think
How?
that like LL should just be no bans then, and just like let it be a
So,
fun thing that people can like, because
kind of. I I
yeah,
I don't come from Magic, but I've been told there's two things that Magic does. There's like anything goes LL. I don't know what they call it, Legacy, whatever.
it's like
But
Wild and
it's
Hearthstone, like anything goes.
no ban list LL.
Yeah.
Fucking have fun, go nuts. And then they have another LL with a ban list. And they will utilize them for different purposes. Like the no ban list LL would be more of a casual, funsies thing. And then ban list LL is they go, okay, well, this one we're trying to keep balanced-ish. We understand it's not as balanced as the main thing, but maybe we can do a battle hardened for this one. And I would still like that approach more, but I think the bigger issue is the generic blanket bans on the ban list rather than hero specific hits. Is obviously I'm very, very biased as an old time main. I love this guy. But it's a bad look with like no discernible benefit. Because if they think, okay, well, Channel Lake Frigid is OP in Icelander and Starboard, then just hit them both. That's fine.
I mean,
That's
they
the
make
point
up the
of it.
rules. Just ban a
Flexibility.
card with a specific hero too. There's not, you know what I mean? You could just do that. You're making up the rules.
Right.
Anyway.
It doesn't seem like there's an upside to making it so generic, at least for Living Legend. I get it more for CC, but I don't get it for Living Legend. And as we've said, it seems like Living Legend is meant to be more like we're just having fun together, doing some crazy, insane, over-the-top shit, running it back and doing it again, and we're vibing.
And that's what I think. That's why I'm saying I think keep Blitz the new player friendly, accessible. It's not. It's
keep
cheap.
Blitz.
You can just go
Adopt Clash. Drop
No.
Blitz.
I'm saying just keep
LSS,
it
listen.
there. I'm saying keep Blitz in this section.
In this little box.
Yes, where it's like, oh, you want to learn how to play the game Flesh and Blood? Awesome. Oh, you got $10 and we're at the card store and you want to just learn how to play this game real quick? Dope. Let's do that. Let's all just have fun and we can go and do whatever.
Right.
And keep it there. Don't give prizes out. Keep that shit isolated. And that's where casual, it could stay there in its own little bubble. And then put LL in the same fucking box, I think. Don't ban anything.
Casual for competitive players.
I think
That's
you just
LL.
like do the same thing where it's like if you and your buds want to go and play LL, that's fine. Go and play it and have a good time. And then when the one jerk shows up with the world's winning LL list with Starvo, and no one's playing with that person, like,
Right.
you know, like make it fun that way. There's plenty of decks that like when we go in lab and we do all these like the spring scene again. Super proud of the spring scene. We're on a team. Once a week, do we do testing where it's just the team? Every other testing session we do, we open it up to whoever wants to go. And I'll be honest with you, there's some decks that I need to get reps in against, and there's some reps that I don't want to get reps in against. There's some decks that I can play against that deck 3 times in 40 minutes versus, it's not a bad deck, but I don't really want to play an hour-long game where I'm mentally taxed the whole time. I'm just not in the mood for that kind of game right now. You could just do the same thing with LL. If people want to bring LL, they could just bring it, play who you want to play who you want to play against, and have it be fun. And you don't have to do it where there's I didn't understand that at all. And I'm so glad that when I brought this up, me and you agreed. There's some people on our team that don't agree, but that's why they're not on this episode.
It's like we said at the start, you know, there are some opinions that are right and some that are wrong and some that are less wrong.
Yeah, and there's some that are really wrong.
Just by default, Wes is probably wrong on this topic. I don't know what his opinion even is, but I'm just going to go out there and say that he's probably wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think, again, if you want to play, and we're going back to this casual versus competitive thing, if you want to make it casual, make it casual, but it's more on the responsibility is on the players that are playing.
And the tournament organizer.
And this exactly. What kind of vibe are you going for when you invite all the people to play Flesh and Blood? Is it just for fun, or are you really trying to beat the person you're sitting across from? And what are you playing for? And I think there's room for, like, let's say the Armory. I think there's room for both. I don't think it's a bad thing if an Armory has better prizes for top 4, or they do that sometimes, or they do that never. I think it's
And shout out to our local store, Iron Lion. Mark Chamberlain, who does a great job running the shop, has been doing this thing where he'll just ask the players, hey, you know, what format do y'all want? Right now, I know RTNs are coming up. I assume you guys want to play nothing but CC. Okay, cool, you got it. oh, you guys have been competing for 2 months. Well, what do y'all want to play? I'm hearing some UPF, and it's always. This is something that stores don't get a lot. A lot of stores will just go, okay, people come in, they seem to like this game, do it over there, have fun. But engaging with the player base and making sure stores are running a format that everyone's going to enjoy, whether it be the competitive format or everyone's tired of it and they want the casual format. And I think LSS can do a better job of differentiating between competitive and casual Flesh and Blood, both in the formats and the balance. Stores can do a better job of catering to players in both the competitive and the casual. And players can honestly loosen up a little bit, and competitive players can play more casual and have fun, and casual players can try and push themselves and think through some lines too. I think everything and everyone in the scene can start to blend these lines a little bit better in some way, where at the end of the day, we're all just having a good time playing Flesh and Blood. This is a fun freaking game. There's a lot of thought involved, but there's a lot of like fun and antics and community moments. And I think as long as we're sort of catering to ourselves and to each other and always being, thoughtful with this in mind of casual versus competitive, that everyone can do their part more or less.
Dude, that was perfect.
Sound like a PSA.
No, that was perfect. We're gonna have that's it, dude. That was perfect. If I can just echo anything that you said, it was the end part where it's like, if you're a casual player, don't pigeonhole yourself there, and maybe show up to an armory and want to win, or show up to an armory with maybe a more competitive deck, or maybe show up to your local RTN and just go there and have fun, and you might surprise yourself. And the same thing goes for if you're a mega sweat lord, like maybe you can play UPF with the homies next time they're asking, or take time to not bludgeon your opponent to death and explain the lines and make them a better player. That last thought that you said was absolutely perfect. And I think I wanted to get this out because, again, there's people either don't have any lines drawn, or their lines that they draw are so rigid that they're like, oh, I can't do that. That's competitive. I can't play that mode. That's casual.
Right.
I'm not doing
that. Titles are, people read into them too much. Really, it just boils down to enjoy the game how you want to enjoy the game. If you find yourself obsessing over the game when you're back at home thinking, how can I improve my deck, then congratulations. You have that competitive itch. Yeah. Feel free to lean into it or not. But we're all just here to enjoy the game. And one last thing too before we close out, my casual players, people that just go to an armory and have a good time and vibe, please never hesitate to ask any of the perceived competitive players any questions. I've had some times where people are obviously a little shy, a little awkward. They're thinking through this line, and I'm standing right there, and I'm happy to weigh in, but I don't want to just give them the answer. I don't want to be an asshole and backseat drive, but if you want to ask, if you want that insight, what do you think about this? Everyone is happy to help. We keep talking about community too, and I know we're blessed here in Colorado. We have a huge and very welcoming community, but really just people are happy to help and answer, and please don't hesitate to ask. It'll only make you better, and the competitive player will also try and explain things in an English way that will help them. Everyone benefits. Talk to your locals. Have a good time.
Dude, I'm not doing this podcast anymore. You're going to outdo me on that. This is insane. This flip side to what Tuck said is absolutely true. If you
got the intros, I got the outros.
If you're a sweat lord, like one of us, because I do pride myself on this specific thing in the local scene. Yeah. The same thing. If you're a casual player, exactly 1,000% what Tuck just said is spot on. If you're a competitive player and you're up against someone that doesn't know what they're doing, just be the better person sometimes. Sometimes if there is a prize on the line, or you want to win, or you're testing something that's fine. But you doesn't have to be every single time. Teach your sparring partners to be better. Mm-hmm. You will be a better player. I pride myself on this.
Iron sharpens iron, and you got to sharpen theirs first.
Then you will benefit. And don't get me wrong. There are some days where I'm not in the mood to do this.
Oh, everyone has those. That's normal.
There's some days where I'm just I made some changes. RTN season's coming up. I'm on my kill or be killed shit. I'm ready to I need to compete. Mm-hmm. But most of the time when I sit across from a newer player, oh my God, I tell them all the time, if I can get every single person in the spring scene to never lose to a Katsu that is not named Dan Gilmartin, I will be very, very happy. I want to win the game and have fun doing it, and I want to win in a way where I didn't win because you don't know what cards are in my deck, or an interaction, or you forgot that breaking scales are up. I will never win a game because my opponent perfect blocks, and there when I go breaking scales, I'll say, don't do that. You got to block by one, because I will win the game.
unless you're in a tournament or something.
Oh no! Hold on.
Yeah. No, at an armory
on.
though, because again, if we're talking about on that radar of competitive casual, we're right in the middle at the armory, where sometimes I want to try hard, and sometimes I'm going to teach you to kick my ass. So that way, I have to try harder to kick your ass, and we're both going to get better.
Yeah. So if you're either on this side of full casual or this side of full competitive, start to blur it a little bit more in, and don't bludgeon your first time opponent to death. We want to grow the scene everywhere we are. No one cares if you're the best person in the armories. Trust me, no one cares. No one cares. Have some fun and teach your opponent something. And if you're casual or more casual, again, like what Tuck said is spot on. Ask questions, because we all want to get better, man. I don't want the person sitting across from me just to be like my punching bag. I want them to know what's going on, and I want them to get better. And watching a player get better that you've helped or part of that journey at all is so magical, which is why everyone in the room wanted Andrew to beat Garrett's ass in that armory.
Exactly. Yep. Sorry to hear it.
Yeah.
Gotta root for the underdog sometimes. That's just how it goes.
All the time, dude. Any shout outs or anything coming up? I know I got Max coming on. I'm gonna have him on next week. I don't know when it's going live, but I got someone that's very good at creating off meta decks. He was the only Prism player to day 2 at the calling in Vegas, and he finished I think very, very high.
Well, yes.
Speaking about casuals, I have Blake coming on. Blake is a player that we're watching move from this where he was more casual to more competitive. And in a room full of killers, he won his first armory, and then within a month did it again. So I want to have him on. We're going to do an episode on how to win your first armory and that move from casual to competitiveness. We have the developers tournament that is going to be on the site. So look for all these things coming up. Is there anything that I missed or any shout outs or anything like that before we head out?
First of all, FaB Life people, thank you again for using the app. If you are experiencing any bugs at all, please uninstall the app and then re-download it. There have been just a plethora, a never-ending conga line of random bugs that affect random people. There's no pattern of phone, OS, whatever. If you have weird bugs, uninstall the app and re-download it, and it should be fine. If it's not, reach out to me. On Discord, it's FaB Life Odin. Other than that, I think we're good. Competitive players, love your casuals. Casuals, love your competitives. Build that community. Everyone enjoy the game together.
And everyone hate Blitz all together. That's the one that's the one place we
Screw
can
Blitz.
unite.
LSS drop Blitz, adopt Clash. Thank Mansant for his work.
We will be back in 2 weeks. We appreciate you guys. And we keep talking about LA. We're going to see a bunch of people I know that don't live in Colorado that watch this. Yo, come up and say what's up to any of us in LA.
Yeah, please. Say hi.
Come up and say what's up. We will see you guys. Thank you, Tuck.
Peace.